Why nobody has visited the moon in more than 45 years, and the reasons are depressing. Hello guys, today I have interest topic want to show you. We always know why nobody has visited the moon in more than 45 years? So today I explained, you don't worried, but before start please subscribe my channel if you think this video can make your education better. Let go. The last time a person visited the moon was in December 1972, during NASA's Apollo 17 mission. Over the decades, NASA has planned to send people back to the moon but has yet to succeed. The Trump administration wants to get astronauts back there by 2024. Astronauts often say the reasons humans haven't returned to the lunar surface are budgetary and political hurdles, not scientific or technical challenges. Private companies like Blue Origin and SpaceX may be the first entities to return people to the moon. Visit Business Insider's homepage for more stories. Landing 12 people on the moon remains one of NASA's greatest achievements, if not the greatest. Astronauts collected rocks, took photos, performed experiments, planted flags, and then came home. But those stays during the Apollo program didn't establish a lasting human presence on the moon. More than 45 years after the most recent crewed moon landing, Apollo 17, in December 1972, there are plenty of reasons to return people to Earth's giant, dusty satellite and stay there. Vice President Mike Pence has promised that we will see U.S. astronauts on the moon by 2024, including the first women to ever touch the lunar surface, in a program called Artemis. But on a recent phone call with reporters, NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine said that ambitious goal is going to require quite a lot more federal cash, something that's historically been a political sticking point in Washington. If it wasn't for the political risk, we would be on the moon right now, Bridenstine said. In fact, we would probably be on Mars. So why haven't astronauts been back to the moon in nearly 47 years? It was the political risks that prevented it from happening, Bridenstine said. The program took too long and it costs too much money. Bridenstine said that's a major part of why President Trump has requested an additional $1.6 billion in funding for the current plan to return to the moon, which is largely focused on a lunar lander that at this point doesn't exist. Apollo 9 astronaut Rusty Schweickart recently told Business Insider that he wishes Bridenstine good luck with this goal. Accelerating something that ambitious is a real challenge, and it takes commitment and dollars, and that's what's going to be required, Schweickart said. We've tried 2 other times administrations have tried, and they've been stillborn. Researchers and entrepreneurs have long pushed for the creation of a crewed base on the moon, a lunar space station. A permanent human research station on the moon is the next logical step. It's only 3 days away. We can afford to get it wrong and not kill everybody, Chris Hadfield, a former astronaut, previously told Business Insider. And we have a whole bunch of stuff we have to invent and then test in order to learn before we can go deeper out. A lunar base could evolve into a fuel depot for deep space missions, lead to the creation of unprecedented space telescopes, make it easier to live on Mars, and solve long-standing scientific mysteries about Earth and the moon's creation. It could even spur a thriving off-world economy, perhaps one built around lunar space tourism. But many astronauts and other experts suggest the biggest impediments to making this, and moon missions in general, a reality, are banal and somewhat depressing. It's really expensive to get to the moon, but not that expensive. A tried-and-true hurdle for any spaceflight program, especially missions that involve people, is the steep cost. NASA's 2019 budget is $21.5 billion, and the Trump administration is asking Congress to boost that to $22.6 billion in the 2020 budget. Those amounts may sound like a windfall, until you consider that the total gets split among all the agency's divisions and ambitious projects: the James Webb Space Telescope, the giant rocket project called Space Launch System, SLS, and far-flung missions to the Sun, Jupiter, Mars, the asteroid belt, the Kuiper belt, and the edge of the solar system. By contrast, the U.S. military gets a budget of about $680 billion a year. Plus, NASA's budget is somewhat small relative to its past. NASA's portion of the federal budget peaked at 4% in 1965, Apollo 7 astronaut Walter Cunningham said during congressional testimony in 2015. For the past 40 years it has remained below 1%, and for the last 15 years it has been driving towards 0.4% of the federal budget. Trump's budget calls for a return to the moon, and then later an orbital visit to Mars. But given the ballooning costs and snowballing delays related to NASA's SLS rocket program, there may not be enough funding to make it to either destination, even if the International Space Station gets defunded early. A 2005 report by NASA estimated that returning to the moon would cost about $104 billion, $133 billion today, with inflation, over about 13 years. The Apollo program cost about $120 billion in today's dollars. Manned exploration is the most expensive space venture and, consequently, the most difficult for which to obtain political support, Cunningham said during his testimony. He added, according to Scientific American, unless the country, which is Congress here, decided to put more money in it, this is just talk that we're doing here. A generation of billionaire space nuts may get there. Another issue, astronauts say, is NASA's graying workforce. Today, more American kids polled say they dream about becoming YouTube stars rather than astronauts. You've got to realize young people are essential to this kind of an effort, Apollo 17 astronaut Harrison Schmitt recently told Business Insider. The average age of the people in mission control for Apollo 13 was 26 years old, and they'd already been on a bunch of missions. Schweikart echoed that concern, noting that the average age of someone today at NASA's Johnson Space Center is closer to 60 years old. That's not where innovation and excitement comes from. Excitement comes from when you've got teenagers and 20-year-olds running programs, Schweikart said. When Elon Musk lands a rocket booster, his whole company is yelling and screaming and jumping up and down. Thanks guys for watching this video. Don't forget subscribe my channel. Goodbye, see you next video.